dialed in, but if you don't mind, Adam, what's going on in your world? We got a minute or two to kill. Maybe some people dialing in for the first time aren't aware of you. Would you mind a little intro or background? Maybe that's not the worst idea.
Yeah, happy to. So I work with Conrad on a couple different things. Co-host at the Art of Hospitality. So Conrad and I got a podcast that we do on a weekly basis, and then I also work with Conrad on the marketing side or the sales side, I guess I should say, for BuildUp Bookings. I've been in the industry since 2008. I live on the Outer Banks, but have had a variety of different roles in the industry. From the management side and the vendor side, primarily focused on sales and marketing throughout my career. But a variety of different roles from director of marketing at a vacation rental company here in the Outer Banks to director of sales and marketing at Point Central, at Breezeway, VP of sales at Inhabit. Now I get an opportunity to work with a couple different vendors, BuildUp Bookings being one, and then Riva, which is a review management tool, being the other.
Yeah. It's great, Adam, to have you here, kind of depth of experience. I guess I'm wondering before we get started, any Tim Ferriss 4 Hour Work Week stuff? Some people very cleverly kind of figured out my title from Tim Ferriss's stuff. Are you familiar with his work?
I loved him. I was
Yeah.
listening to him a lot when he first started the podcast. I have to say I haven't listened to him in a number of years. It felt like I was hearing a lot of the same things when I was listening to the podcast, but I
Yeah.
love his perspective on things. I think he's got a really interesting way to think about the world.
Yeah, like you, it's not something where I consume it all the time, but I think it was an interesting concept title. So actually, I'll spill the secret sauce now. Hopefully, this doesn't get me in any trouble with the VRMA folks because we love them over at VRMA. But this was actually one of the sessions that they rejected for VRMA this year. So I got a different session, not complaining, but to be clear, this was one that we had pitched for them that they didn't end up proceeding with. So all good. All right. Well, I'm seeing many of our participants, probably over half at this point, are here live. We gave it 3 minutes. We'll go ahead and get started. So, welcome everybody. Hello, my name is Conrad O'Connell. Welcome to the 4 Hour Vacation Rental Marketing Work Week. We're going to stop being busy today, and we're going to start being productive. So excited to get things going, and I've got a lot of content to share. Adam is going to be kind of putting in some extra flavor to some of my questions and ideas here as well as we get going. But I want to start with this. So, how many hours did you actually spend on marketing? I find that there's often this bifurcation of the different companies that we work with, where some of them are larger, bigger property managers and they have scaled up a team and then they have multiple people working on it and it's their primary job role. So they're spending 20, 30, 40, 50 hours a week maybe on marketing collectively. And then sometimes it's like a barbell. You have the other side of the barbell and it's people spending no time at all. They're not actually doing any sort of ongoing marketing efforts or ongoing marketing activities. I wonder if we could kind of, with the premise of today's webinar, with the premise of today's talk, what if we could just spend 4 hours a week on marketing? I think it's very tangible because I think as we get going here in the webinar, what you'll learn is that it doesn't mean that only 4 hours of marketing work is occurring on an annual basis or a weekly basis, excuse me. It just means that you're directing 4 hours of work every single week, and then a team or someone that you're collaborating with is assisting, with some of those marketing elements and some of those different techniques or strategies that you're hoping to leverage. So it's not in my mind the belief that more time automatically means a better outcome when it comes to doing better marketing or more marketing. Sometimes, in fact, you can find yourself distracted or you can find yourself going down the path of working on things that are not working. So that is kind of the challenge that I have today, which is can I convince you that 4 hours a week is enough of your time that you can invest into your marketing and that it's ultimately going to help you grow your business, whether your goals are to get more bookings for the rest of this year, maybe your goals are to get significantly more traffic or visibility next year for your business, whatever the case may be. The goal is today to talk about some of these ideas and kind of go through them. So would love to hear, any comments or thoughts in the chat that people might have about how much money they actually, or how much time and money, maybe to some degree, they might actually spend on marketing on a weekly basis. And to be honest, I think this is part of the problem right here on the screen right now. The marketing channel mix, and this was just a graphic that I grabbed off of Google. There's so many things that you can be doing, right? There's these different bubbles, kind of, if you will, representing different channels. You could be doing SEO, you could be doing paid, Google ads, you could be doing quote unquote social media, but social media is a very broad, diverse set of platforms at this point. Obviously, Facebook, Instagram, kind of our big ones. There's other social platforms out there like, TikTok comes to mind, obviously, is another one some of our clients have explored. Twitter, now called X, that's another platform. There's a lot of daily users on platforms like Snapchat. Pinterest still gets a lot of users. We have clients who've actually successfully gotten a lot of traffic from Pinterest. So it's very easy, I think, if you're not in the marketing mindset, in the marketing mode, to say, gosh, there's 10,000 things that I can do. How do I narrow things down into focusing on what, I should be doing? And I think that problem is probably where I think a lot of people do get stuck because they don't know what they actually need to work on. But Adam, I mean, you started on the industry, some time ago, and maybe the number of channels that you started with back when you were, working in-house at a vacational company was a lot smaller. But what's kind of your reaction to this idea as far as like the quantity of things that we're encountered with? And that's some of the battle that we're fighting here a little bit.
Yeah, I think you want to make it as simple as possible, especially if we're going to try to really, I won't say limit, but I'd say use your time as wisely as you can. So if we are thinking about that 4 hour per week, then you really want to make your marketing approach as simple as you can be. And even way back in 2008 when I was starting, the number of channels were growing a lot, and I was testing them out and wasting my time in a lot of different directions. And what I ended up landing back on was the ones that I felt were the core to driving the message and driving the content that I was creating, whether that's a blog post, video, Instagram was just coming on, so pictures were becoming exceptionally important. But I think that it's the consistency. It's the simple approach, and then consistently going after that approach on a regular basis. So it's not falling off. It's not getting too many different options. So you're only touching one every once in a while. It's really getting a core group of channels or approaches that you want to think about in marketing and then sticking with those. Now, to your point, at some point, maybe you realize that that's not working or it's not driving what you want or you're not enjoying it. And then you can make that switch. But I think you've got to commit mentally for at least a little bit of time to see if it works and then switch another channel if you feel like you need to.
Yeah. I want to go to the poll results here just for a moment before we kind of proceed with that line of thinking, Adam, because I think I'm pretty aligned with what you're, explaining here too, and I wanted to talk about some of it. So just for reference, about 70% of you here live on the call have submitted the survey so far. So I'm going to read off some stats here. I think you can't see it as a participant, but I can see it as the one running the webinar here. So about 13% of you are single property hosts. You just have one property. About 20% of you are multi-property hosts. That leaves roughly, I'm getting another response right now, so it's changing the numbers a little bit, but that leaves roughly 70% of people in the room that are property managers. The second question was, how many direct booking channels do you focus on? So kind of relevant to the graphic on the screen right now. 20% of people said none. We're not focusing on any direct booking marketing channels right now. 27% said they're focusing on one or two channels. 33% said they're focusing on three or more. And then the 20% of people said we're on it all. So, I didn't know exactly how many to put into that poll to make it somewhat attainable, but they said we're on it all, which is interesting. I love this one. So I was very curious how people are trending. Obviously, we have our own data within BuildUp, but it's not exactly representative of every single vacation rental manager out there because some people are, outside of our client list, they're doing different things. So my third question was, have your direct bookings so far this calendar year gone up or down? So is your 2025 booking, and we could say revenue or number of bookings, whatever metric you want to use is kind of okay with me, but have they gone up or have they gone down compared to your 2024 data? So 8% of people said we're up. 67% of people, a huge chunk, said that we're flat, so no meaningful difference, no, we're not up or down. And then 25% of people said that we're down in direct bookings. So that's not an amazing trend if we're being transparent and candid, right? That some people, about a quarter of the people that are listening are actually down. They're getting less direct bookings now than they were last year. And then, yeah, last question, just kind of come to a close here on that one. What were your goals in 2026? So 46% of people, I'm assuming mostly the property managers, are hoping to get more homeowners. 31% of people are hoping to get more bookings overall. So no matter the source. And then 23% of people are focused on getting more direct booking. So just people that are going to the website and booking directly. So that is an interesting one, Adam. I didn't put this in a poll. It's actually a poll that's coming out on LinkedIn, I think a week or so after this recording that we're doing here right now live. But I have a question for some folks, and I didn't put it in the polls here, but are you currently, it seems like more people that we talk to are more booking constrained right now than they are inventory constrained, meaning that they're hoping to fill, they're hoping to get more reservations and more bookings for the inventory of the homes that they currently manage. And would they take a new home? Yes, but that's not the constraint in their business. They have more availability and more openings in their calendar than they do, interested guests on that side of things. So I guess I'm curious, Adam, what you're seeing in the industry. Do you think your typical average property manager needs more bookings right now overall, or do they need more homeowners to meet the demand in their market? What do you think on your side?
Well, one quick note, Conrad mentioned a poll that's coming out in a week or so. So from a marketing perspective, the hidden tool behind that is he's actually leveraging a tool to be ahead of the marketing game. So he's leveraging his 4 hours per week by using some additional tools that can time things to go out when it's an appropriate time to do it. So just as a side note, there's value in that. But I think the other side of that question around, are you going after homeowners? Are you going after guests? I think it's an interesting one. And my perspective is one that if you do great guest marketing, you're going to do great homeowner marketing because homeowners are looking at Google and social media in the same way that a lot of guests are. Insert market, vacation rentals, vacation rental management. They're following the same social media. If they see you as the property manager who is the front runner in that market that is sharing valuable content for guests, the homeowners are going to see that. It's probably valuable for them as well, but they're also going to see that you are driving significant attention from guests And at the end of the day, homeowners want a management company that can fill their homes, not be great marketing for other homeowners. So I do believe that great guest marketing leads to great homeowner marketing. Now, I guess another way to think about that is if you're going after guests, that means that you are trying to fill the homes that you have. If you are going after homeowners, to Conrad's question, does that mean that you actually have more demand than the homes or the supply that you have? My guess is that's probably not accurate. My guess is most of the people that are going after more homeowners see that as a revenue opportunity and say, hey, I want to drive more revenue. And if I get more homeowners, then I'll drive more revenue. And there is some accuracy behind that. But I think that another way to approach that is if we fill the homes that we have, then our homeowners are going to be happy. As a result, they're going to refer other homeowners to us, or other homeowners are going to see the fact that our calendars are full. In addition to that, if your homes are full, your rates are higher. So I think that this is a bit of a flywheel that if you can fill the homes that you have and start to drive guests, then the homeowners will sort of naturally come. I think the other side to that question is the cost associated with it. And there's a much larger market of guests looking for your homes than there are homeowners looking for your management. And the ROI on the marketing spend that you put towards homeowners is going to be much lower than the ROI on the spend that you put towards guests. So I think that if you're going to, especially if you're sort of just starting out or trying to drive new marketing ideas, I think guests is going to be the place that you see faster and better success than if you're going after homeowners.
Yeah, I agree. There was a comment in the chat here from Heather F. I don't know if you want me to share your last name, Heather, so hopefully that's okay. But she said there has to be a balance of both. And I think Adam, you nailed it too, right? Like it's kind of the analogy I sometimes do is like a gym analogy. It's like if you go to the gym and you only lift with one arm, you're gonna look really weird, in a few months. Like, why is that arm really strong? The other arm's really weak, right? It's gonna be very strange. So I do think there's an element of we've got to do both to some degree. But to kind of the focus of today's discussion and today's topic, I think your big three, your top three that we see, and I've looked now at probably close to 500 different vacation rental managers Google Analytics profiles. So I go in there and I look at people, their traffic, where it's coming from, whether they end up being a BuildUp Bookings client or not, and I say, all right, what are the number one, number two, number three traffic sources that we see over and over again? And this is almost always the case 98% of the time, let's say it that way, where people are finding them on search. People are finding them on social media and then coming to the website that way, or they're getting responses, or they're getting clicks to their website from emails that they're sending out. So these big three, and within search and social, we could have a quick debate or a quick delineation, if you will, between organic and paid. So on the search side, obviously there's kind of the SEO element to it. How well do I rank in mostly Google organically? We could almost open another Pandora's box, if you like, with respect to these new AI search platforms. I would argue that's still in a way search. We could call it a new flavor of search, but in my mind, people using ChatGPT or Gemini or a tool like that to kind of find, different websites to click through and look for inventory. I feel like that's very similar to how we've done search marketing for a long time. Is there some new nuances or some new things that we're going to learn as we go along there? Absolutely. But in my mind, I kind of put it into that search bucket for the time being. Currently, that's really more of an organic, component, one would say, like quote unquote ranking well in ChatGPT or being recommended by ChatGPT isn't something today at this moment in time that you can influence with ads. That will come, by the way. I almost guarantee that. It's just a matter of when, not really a matter of if, would be my take on that. So down the road, I could absolutely see a world where you're running your Google ads. Maybe you're even running ads on a platform like Bing, and then shoot, you might even be running ads on platforms like ChatGPT, or you might be running ads in a search engine like Perplexity or something like that. And it's giving recommendations, it's giving sponsored links. So again, long diatribe there, but basically search is people using these different platforms to kind of find you that way. There's an organic and a paid component there. Social media, the same thing. Of course, we have Facebook and Instagram are kind of as we look to narrow things down a little bit here, as we get deeper in the presentation, I would say those are where we see the majority of the results. Can you get traffic from, let's say, a platform like Twitter? Can you get traffic from a platform like Pinterest? Absolutely. Is that where I ever see, any significant booking trends or booking data indicating that you're getting success there? I haven't seen it. So I'm not saying it's not impossible, but I'm just saying that I don't see it very often. So within the social kind of world, we see Facebook and Instagram as kind of the big platforms there. And of course, within those platforms, there's a way to run advertising. And there's, of course, a way to run page content organically, but that's kind of number two. And then the last one is email. I could almost, and I've thought closely about kind of rebranding this a little bit to say not just email, but also let's call it outbound. So it could be email, it could be SMS. We have a lot of clients now that are doing both. I see some folks in the call that are current clients where they're saying, hey, you do more than just email for us, you do SMS for us as well. Absolutely. So I have thought about kind of renaming that, rebranding that to call that like outbound outbound messaging, because in my mind, that outbound messaging could be done through email, it could be done through SMS, like text marketing, but it's kind of the same general idea, which is like I'm pushing out a message to a list of subscribers, whether they happen to be on WhatsApp or SMS or email, is somewhat immaterial to the point that I'm going to make, through the rest of the presentation today. It's really just this idea of people looking for you, people engaging on platforms where you can post content, and then my ability to reach out to people in a one-to-one or one-to-many type fashion. So I think when you're going through this idea that Adam just said very well a few minutes ago of focusing and narrowing in, you got to kind of zoom out for a second, though, I think, and really understand, like, what am I trying to achieve when I'm doing, quote unquote, doing SEO, or what I'm, quote unquote, doing PPC? Like, what is my objective? What am I trying to get to? And if you understand that at a high level, then the actual actions that you take, the crystallized nature of what you need to focus on after that is so much clearer, because you're like, I'm doing this, I'm creating content on my website to get more search traffic, people coming in and looking at my website so that more people can be aware of my brand, see my property, see what I have to offer. Then they will come back and make a booking. So when we know what we're trying to achieve, it's so much easier to kind of get from point A to point B versus people that want to write very long strategy documents that are 80 pages, but it's like, okay, what do I do from there? Like how actionable is that? How tactical is that? Where I need to kind of focus on things. So my suggestion, right, for a lot of people listening and to some of the poll results that we've seen so far on the webinar today, is that you're so much better off going a mile deep and an inch wide in a given channel than being a mile wide and an inch deep in a channel, right? So like the best thing I think for you to do is, if you're focused on SEO, focus on just SEO for a few months at a time. So if you only have these 4 hours per week that you can work on it, again, maybe it's you're working a few hours per week, then you're delegating down to other people on a team or in some other fashion. We'll cover that in a minute when it comes to working with a freelancer, working with a specialist, maybe working with an agency. These are all the different avenues available to you. Maybe it's an in-house team member. I think your best bet, and what I see that works the best over time, is being that mile deep and an inch wide, taking one channel and trying to get really good at it, and not worrying so much about, oh, well, we're ignoring Instagram right now. That's okay. You can ignore Instagram right now. I have a client that we work with that's a 70% plus direct booking, property manager that we work with actually here in the South Carolina area that I'm based in. And he doesn't even have an Instagram page. Genuinely, there's not an Instagram page for this company at all, does not exist. And he gets 70% of his bookings. His sort of mile deep in his world has been SEO and paid search. So that's kind of where he's put his effort, his energy, his focus into. He's got a lot of direct bookings coming in mostly off those channels. He does have a Facebook page, but he does not have an Instagram page. And the Facebook page does provide some traffic. So, and we've seen these kind of so-called viral Airbnbs, that will pop up from time to time. We've spoken, Adam, to many of them on the podcast and things like that. And many of them double, triple, quadruple down on Instagram. Did they cross-post some of their content to Facebook or maybe YouTube or something like that? Yeah. But like if they look at the 80-20 or shoot, even the 90-10, it's not even really 80-20 sometimes. The majority of the results often come from doing one channel and doing it really well versus spreading yourself so thin across 7 or 8 different channels. So like in your marketing lexicon, in your operational lexicon here, as you get further on the process here, be completely comfortable or be completely fine with just saying, no, I'm not focused on that right now. Doesn't mean that it's not a good idea. Doesn't mean that we can't get bookings from Instagram. Doesn't mean that we can't get bookings from SEO. Let's say that's the channel that you're ignoring right now. Just know that I'm trying to go a mile deep and I can't do that if I'm spreading myself too thin. So Adam, hopefully this kind of hits the mark with what you're saying there a little bit, but any reaction to kind of these before I go to the next thought process? Yeah.
Well, yeah, so quick reaction, but I would also love for you to explain when we talk about SEO, what does that really mean to us? But I agree with that. And the one thing I would say is that after you go a mile deep, the next thing you can do is start to layer on additional channels once you get really good at that. And I would suggest that you repurpose things that you do. So for instance, and I'll let you answer the SEO side of it, but if my focus is SEO, I might be writing a lot of great value added blog posts that I'm sharing. Well, when I do that, I might also take pictures. Maybe I'll take a video. And those are the type of things that I could then repurpose into YouTube and into Instagram and into Facebook or into my monthly newsletter. So a holistic approach, I think, is ultimately where you want to get to. But if you're starting from zero, you want to take one step first and then think about how you can layer in some additional channels as you go.
Yeah. It's a good point when it comes to like each channel, like what are the discrete actions that make up that channel. So SEO will do that one to your question there, Adam. So when I think of SEO, I've come up with this a while ago. Actually, Matt Landau made me come up with this because he's like, this stuff's too complicated. People get confused and that sort of thing. So TLCK was kind of the framework that I ended up coming up with. So technical, which is like, is my website in good enough is the word I use now. I added that in later on because I think some people get overly fixated on technical SEO. I'm going to spend, 10,000 hours auditing my website and trying to get a perfect score on one of these crawling tools. not actually as valuable as you think. What you want to do is make sure you don't have any like major gaps, major issues. But it's almost like if you go to the doctor and ask for a full body scan, they'll find something on you. Like they'll find a little, a little skin tag or something. They'll find a knee crack that didn't heal properly or something like that. So, when it comes to these SEO audits, I think what you want to do is do a technical SEO audit, get it good enough, make sure you don't have like obvious problems, like make sure you don't have an open wound on your arm, as it were. Like you don't want those types of things. And then you're focusing a lot of effort into keyword research. What are the terms that I actually want to show up for? So if I'm in the Outer Banks, I probably want to rank well for Outer Banks condo rentals, but I also probably want to rank well when someone searches for the best pet-friendly Outer Banks vacation rentals and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the keyword research element. What are the terms I want to rank for? Then there's content creation and link building. And those are the things essentially you can do in perpetuity, by the way. So you can put new blog posts out on the website on a pretty much continual basis for a decade. Like we have clients who've worked with for a long time. We're still updating the website with new content. And link building is kind of one of those, again, limitless games where in theory you could play, forever and really never max out or, get more links probably than your competition. So now over time, is there some case to be made for diminishing returns? Absolutely. Like we have a clients that we've worked with that rank number one in their core market for a given SEO term. So let's say, insert area name vacation rentals. So if it was Outer Banks vacation rentals and you rank number one, you could sort of make the argument that doing a lot more SEO work may not give you a lot of incremental gains in terms of your organic search revenue. I can agree with that sort of premise or that thesis if someone were to suggest that to me. Now, I do think there's something to be said for how great is my lead. So my 1 point up right now in a basketball game, it is the opponent have the ball and they're about to score, as the Celtics let me down last night aggressively, Adam, sidebar that we won't get into right now. Or do I have a 20-point lead and I don't need to worry about it? That's more of a nuanced situation depending on where you're at. But I do think it's okay to do, to go back to that idea from a second ago, let's say with a channel like SEO, is say, I've posted 50 blog posts at this point. I built 100 links to my website. I rank number one or number two when you search area name vacation rentals. Let me then go double down and focus on other channel. I think that's perfectly healthy. I think that's okay, especially given the context of what we're saying with I have a limited amount of time every week. I got to decide what kind of needs my attention, what's my new thing that I can work on, and then go from there. So definitely can agree with that. And actually, it's funny that SEO was the next slide because that wasn't pre-planned, Adam. Your question, as it were, but. The truth is that doing a tiny bit of, let's say, SEO work, and this applies to a lot of things, I just use SEO as the example, is kind of the same as doing zero SEO work. So like if I do my gym analogy again, going to the gym and lifting a dumbbell that's 50 pounds one time doesn't build a muscle, doesn't get you much stronger. It's lifting that 50-pound dumbbell 7 or 8 or 10 times across 4 reps and then doing that every single week, multiple times per week for 2 years, and then your arm is huge, right? Like those are the things that happen over time. So I think that what some people often fall into, or they make that mistake that I see regularly, is, well, we sent one email, we sent an email out to our email newsletter list 4 months ago and we didn't get any bookings off it, so therefore email marketing doesn't work. I think with any level of rational thought or sort of, questioning, again, that sort of statement, we all know that that sounds a little silly when we say it out loud, but I think it can happen to the best of us where we try something for a very small sample size or a very small little bit of effort. It doesn't work. And then we just kind of retreat and we say, well, we're not going to focus on that anymore because it didn't work. So that's, again, to kind of hammer my point home here, that's why we want to go a mile deep, because we need to do not one blog post. We need to do 100 blog posts. We not need to build one link. We need to build 50 links, to kind of see the results there. And yes, it's frustrating. There's moments where you feel like you are spending some time and not seeing the results right away. But one thing I believe with email, with SEO, with paid search, with social media is that you should see progress along the way. So maybe you're going to have moments where it's like, this is a little bit frustrating. I'm not seeing the results that I want to. I'm not getting a massive increase in my direct bookings, but there's little flags that you can look for that'll show you success. So if you're in that early part of your journey and you're looking at, for example, let's say on the SEO side, Google Search Console impressions would be a really good example, I think, of what that might look like. So if you verify your website in Google Search Console, it's brand new, you've done no SEO work, what's it going to show for? Like maybe your brand name, maybe a few other keywords, but you're going to have like 50 or 100 impressions in Google Search Console, right? But then as you go along, it's like maybe you only are getting, 10 visits a month. And then 2 months later, you're only getting 30. You're like, that's not really a lot of visitors. I've been focused on this now for 2 months. But your impressions likely will go from maybe a few hundred to a few thousand. Or, maybe a few months after that, you're up to 10,000 impressions in Search Console. So I believe almost every marketing channel out there will kind of leave you little breadcrumbs of success. Even if the results aren't massively different, you can start to see that progress or those improvements over time. On the email list, I would make the argument that looking at the number of subscribers is a relatively healthy, thing to measure your success or your progress on that. On the social media side, obviously followers is a decent proxy. Maybe just number of people reached might be even a better proxy for some level of success that you're seeing with social media. So if you're posting on Instagram 3 times a week and you start by getting 30 people to see your content, and then 5 months later you're getting 3,000 people to see your content, again, you may not be getting a lot of bookings when you're getting going, because 3,000 people isn't often enough to get, a new booking every single week or every single day or anything like that, but you see progress along the way. So just kind of think about it that way, that doing a tiny bit of something is kind of the same as doing nothing. But when you're focused on it and you're putting effort into it over time, you want to make sure that you're giving it enough time. You're pushing through this plateau so you can actually get to that next stage, that next step. So a lot of ways to describe this, right? Shiny object syndrome seems like the most how would I say this? The most widely used one of these. There's the woman in the red dress is the one that Hormozy uses all the time. But insert your distraction element of choice here. It could be anything, But we all know what this feels like, and I'm guilty of this as well, by the way. So I'm not sitting here from some high horse and saying, "Oh, I never fall victim to this," because I've fallen victim to this pretty much just as much as anybody else out there can do. Which is, we have a new idea, we put some level of effort into it, we stop doing it, it falls off completely, we get no level of success from it, and then we kind of lose interest and move on. Then we find a new thing, we do that for a little while, we fall off, and then repeat the cycle over and over again. As much as you might feel like that hits it for you. But over time, what I typically see with, let's say, SEO, link building or SEO content creation is this sort of thing. Like, there's moments where we're doing a lot of work and we're not getting a significant improvement or result, and then we get up a little bit, and then we start to rank a little bit better in Google. We start to get more emails on the email list. We start to get more followers on social media. We start to see those direct bookings coming in, and then things level off a little bit. So going back to the poll results that we had a few minutes ago, a lot of you aren't seeing a massive growth in direct bookings year over year. I just, like, depending on where you actually are in your stage, that could be somewhat normal. It could be that you have to double or triple or quadruple your output in order to see the same results as you did before. And that can be frustrating again at times. Like, I think back to, the SEO work that we've done for clients before, ranking their blog content highly. Now that blog content has been chewed away a lot by these AI overviews on Google. I don't feel bad about the work we did. Like, the work we did led to a lot of organic search traffic. It's a good thing overall that we did that work. But now Google is putting this AI overview in the search results, and we've lost a lot of our traffic. That's a bummer. There's also nothing we can do about it. We can't control Google. We can't control what they're doing with their algorithm and their search results page, but it lets us know that that's a plateau. Heck, that might even be a decline for a moment, and we still got to be creating that content so we can get to that next step. So I think the problem that most people have is that they're in this tactics trap, right? It's like, okay, well, yeah, Airbnb is changing. Let me go worry about the new 15.5% Airbnb fee that's working on right now. Or, we did one email and then we took a 6-month break and then didn't do another email. Or we did one blog post, took a year break, and then didn't do another one, that sort of thing. So I think that the key is that we want to be productive. We want to focus on something for a long period of time. We want to see the progress along the way, and we don't just want to be busy. I think it's a often, overused trope that people are just busy all the time. It's really, what are you prioritizing? And is there things that you can stop doing, like instead of focusing on 4 channels, focus on one, but then make that a lot deeper and not be on that hamster wheel. So I don't think it's about being lazy at all. I think it very much is about leverage. So the idea is that, really what we often find is that a small percentage, of course, over and over again, we hear this, this phraseology, and it turns out to be true over and over again. And we have to learn the hard way, again, time and time again, how this goes. But the minority of their efforts typically do lead to the most direct bookings. So if I go back to my channel mix from earlier, it's these 3 channels are going to lead to the majority of the results for most of our clients when we look at them. Not the fact that there's 85 different things that we can do, but maybe 5 or 6 channels in total that typically get the best results. So again, not about being lazy. It's about finding that leverage. What are the things that I can do over the next, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, year, that are going to help me improve my results significantly? And what is the actual breakdown of the things that I'm doing on a regular basis, those 4 hours per week, that'll actually get me there? So the joke that we typically make on the Heads and Beds podcast feed is, how many minutes did we get into the podcast before we mentioned AI? So today, 29 minutes. We made it before we mentioned the word AI. I don't think we mentioned AI before that. And at least it wasn't in my slides intentionally. Maybe I did it one of my little rants there. But I think that, yes, AI is a unlock. It is a powerful productivity multiplier for things like content, things like building pages on your website, things like helping you brainstorm a strategy. So I am all for and all open to the idea of how AI can help us. Now, is AI just the perfect solution where we just click a button, and everything is just kind of done for us and everything works perfectly? That I'm not taking it that far yet. Like, I think we still need to supervise these AI, tools and platforms and machines and requests that we're doing, because without that, I think what you get is this term AI slop has gotten very popular, and I think you see that a lot with people that are just very clearly using, AI tools and not really thinking about the way that they actually get presented to the person on the back end of that. So the email itself, not having that exact design or style that matches your brand. It's just a quick AI, slop version of it. So I think the AI tools are great, but I think that they are the analogy that I'm doing nowadays for AI, it's like the board game Chutes and Ladders. In the board game Chutes and Ladders, you have these little moments where you come to a certain friction point or a stopping point, you hit the ladder, and then you go up a level. So AI can do something like that. It can do analysis for you. It can write a blog post outline for you. It can get you going, and it's like a little shortcut. It's like a little cheat code to get, one level ahead of where you are today using that 4 hours, but being able to outline 10 or 12 blog posts at a high level of effectiveness and not one or two. So that's amazing. And I think we should embrace and use AI for tools like that. Now, does it give you the final in Shoots and Ladders game? When you go up one ladder, it doesn't mean that you're going to win the game because you can certainly find shoots, which is, yeah, you get to a certain pace on the board and you go down a path and then you end up getting kicked back a level or two. So if you use really crappy AI content and then someone unsubscribes from your email newsletter list, that's a shoot. It's like, we got this email out quicker. I'm glad we got it out. That's a good thing. But if the content is not good, then we have a shoot, moment happen where we actually get negative results, negative progress from AI. So that's where I think all the promises of AI don't always match the reality. I feel like a lot of people feel that way. And the way that I'm thinking about using AI in our business and with our clients is how do we find more ladders and try not to fall into any of these, shoots or slides as we go along here. So I'm going to do a block here on freelancers and agencies, but Adam, I'll take a breath there because I feel like you have some thoughts on AI as well. They're quite valuable.
Yeah, well, I agree with everything you said. I think that AI is definitely an unlock, and I think from my perspective on the marketing side of things, it's an unlock from content creation. And if I think about all of the pieces that we're talking about, search, social, email, I think they all feed together. Now, to Conrad's point, I think choose one of those paths and go into it and get good at it and make sure that you can build some traction in it, and then start to think about the other ones. But if we start at the top and we think about SEO and content building, that feeds the rest of that flywheel. So AI gives you that ability. If you have an idea, then you can go into AI and, to Conrad's point, create an outline, have it write it for you. You should be the one that finalize that and put your voice into it and make sure that you're sharing your perspective. But AI is going to give you that shortcut. Whereas we were having to sit down and write all of this prior to this, this now gives you that speed that you can then start to put out content faster. And what I would suggest is well, I'll take a step back, and I say this quite a bit, but I truly believe it. I think the superpower that we have as hosts and managers is we have local knowledge that guests and homeowners crave. The OTAs can never touch that. The problem is that we're not spending the time to share that local knowledge. So I think that AI gives us the ability to take that information that's in our head and start to get it out. And the way you get it out is through content building. So it's the blog posts that you're talking about, the local events, the partners, where to see the best sunset, what is the best hiking trail. All of those things are things that our guests and our homeowners crave, and we need to share with them. And when we share it with them, all of a sudden we have all of this information that we can then leverage across the other channels. So to Conrad's point, it's not necessarily all about SEO and driving traffic and driving reservations. Some of this is really more about creating a media company, thinking of ourselves as sort of this holistic media company that creates this content and then continues to distribute it in multiple ways. So that great blog post that you shared about the right place to watch the right sunset, you can have a video, you can have a picture, you can then share that in social, which is value add. You can then share that in your newsletter, which is value add. So this is a flywheel that really starts to get going. I think that at the beginning, you need to start slow and be manageable because you don't want to overdo yourself so that you back out. But the other part of that is I think you want to have the right expectations from the beginning. I talk with managers quite a bit, and they want to get direct bookings. But to Conrad's point, they put time into email or social or content building, and they didn't see the results as fast as they want. So they backed out, and now they're again dependent on the OTAs. I think you've got to have this expectation that it's going to take some time and effort to build that process. But AI is a tool that will help unlock all of that and help you move faster and generate more content over time.
And I'll say something controversial here too, right? As the agency owner, which is that The agency is another unlock, and we have that in the third tile here as our freelancers or hiring independent people. But they're not, an agency alone will not make your company successful. To be very clear, like I don't care who's on the call if they've hired us or they're considering hiring us. Like we alone by ourselves are not going to make your company successful. You are going to make your company successful, or your leadership team will, and then you are using an agency or a freelancer to help augment, to enhance, to find certain expertise, to find certain skills that maybe you don't have on your team or that you don't want to hire a full-time person for, right? And I can give the best advice possible. I can give all the right ideas or things that I've seen hundreds of times now over the last 10 years. But if you're not going in there and executing upon it, if we have an idea for something, but then you don't go do it, it kind of doesn't matter, right? Like an idea on the shelf or again, a little bit of SEO is the same as doing no SEO. So I kind of feel that way a lot of times too, which is like if you're the owner of the company or if you're the, whatever title you might have, founder, COO, whatever the case may be, it is your responsibility. It's your job to really understand marketing at a high level. This business, the best companies in this business get really good, get really savvy at marketing. Now, is the leader of these companies always a marketing led person? Absolutely not. I see that regularly where that's not the case. But the companies that we work with that do the best over time, they invest in marketing. Even if it's not their core competency, even if it's not what they love doing, they know that it's something that is actually going to drive the results they're after. And they will invest time, effort, energy, money into at least learning marketing, understanding it, bringing people on their team, whether it be full-time team members, again, whether it's using these other options of outsourcing to freelancing, outsourcing to agencies, et cetera, and they invest into that marketing. And then they have some reasonable expectations, metrics on the back end to measure how well it's going. So I think what doesn't work well is like, well, the agency has got it, or this freelancer has got it. I hired one person or I hired a team of people. I'm just going to leave them alone and not engage with them or not chat with them. And hopefully they figure it out. That will not work. I'll tell you right now. The only path that works, the only path that actually has success is the path where you're intimately involved in this. And again, it doesn't have to be a lot of time. It can be 1 hour. If you do 1 hour per week of focused marketing work, working with a freelancer, working with an agency, you are ahead of 90% of other vacation rental companies out there. I promise you. Like it is not like that much time, effort, energy to be, in that top 5%, that top 10%, that's for sure. Now, the top 1% of a market, that can be hard, right? Because they might have been on for decades and that can be a bit of a challenge. But if you're doing that, you're ahead of a lot of other people who are, too down in the weeds, too focused on other things, too distracted to kind of work on their marketing. And you can tell, and the results they get, are indicative of that. So I think a really good, kind of phraseology as you get going here is like, where am I on all these different channels? Where am I on SEO? Where am I on paid advertising if I'm doing it? Where am I on my email list? Where am I on my social media, et cetera, et cetera? And kind of just knowing your starting point, I think is the way to kind of get going. So I have some different, ideas or concepts in here, and these are direct booking revenue numbers, let's say, just as an example. But if you're level zero, I'm going to call you the spectator. You're just watching. You're not really doing anything. You're not taking action. You're just literally, looking through a computer screen, looking through binoculars, looking through glasses like I have, and you're just seeing, other people essentially, maybe work on their brand, work on their company, and you're just being a spectator. By the way, you and I, Adam, have talked about this a lot. I don't necessarily think that that's inherently the wrong thing if you know that's the game you're playing. Where I often have a lot of challenge and struggle with people is people who are kind of at this level zero, level one type, mindset, but they think they're doing a lot of things, or they think this is a, key part of their business, but they're not actually putting in the effort that they sort of believe they are, or that they tell themselves they're doing. And as a result, they feel like they're level two, level three, but they're really level zero or level one when it comes to understanding their marketing and what they're doing on a direct booking perspective. So I think it's okay to be 100% reliant on OTAs as long as you fully accept that that is the path that you are going to sort of live and die by. That's the sword that you're going to fall on, or that's the sword that's going to, bring you to success. So you can probably make your business a lot simpler. You can probably make your business a lot more straightforward to manage if you're very OTA heavy and you just sort of accept the cards you get dealt from the OTA platforms. Now, to me, that sounds miserable, and I would certainly not want to recommend that to a friend or a family member. So I have a hard time recommending to anyone listening in. But I think that is something that you see a lot, which is people that are spectators, but sort of have this idea that they're doing other things. Now, I think that level one is where you see a lot of these smaller managers get to, which is like, let's call them a contender, this kind of bringing some themes in from the book. And we'll talk about the book here in a few minutes. But let's say you've got a few $100,000 a year of direct revenue coming in, direct booking revenue coming in. So maybe you've got a website set up. Maybe you've got the ability to book on that website. So maybe it's using one of your PMS platform template sites. Maybe you invested in like a smaller custom website, that sort of thing. You've got some level of consistency there. Maybe you're doing one channel some of the times. You're doing emails occasionally, every other month. You're doing Facebook content occasionally, maybe once or twice a week, something like that. But it's like, hey, I want to have time. I'll do some marketing. Otherwise, I'm just going to focus on other things. Again, like, does that get you out of the gates? Does that get you somewhere? Yes, but like you probably want to be doing a lot more. Level two, level three, let's call these the champion and the expert. I think the champion is that person who is getting solid results. They know pretty predictably kind of where they're coming from. So depending on the size of the company, you could be anywhere from, a few hundred thousand per year in direct bookings all the way up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 million. It just really depends, on exactly the size of your company, how many units you have. But let's say you're kind of in that 10 to 30% direct booking zone. That's where I think you have some level of consistency. Again, maybe you have a small team, could be in-house, could be freelancers, could be an agency that you've hired, any of those levels. But I think this is kind of where you see a lot of that, 50 unit and up companies, generally speaking. And that's where you see a lot of these like 1.5 to 3.5 to $4.5 million revenue companies, is they're able to kind of scrape by, get some direct bookings, do okay. But maybe they're not, overly investing in it. They're kind of putting in the bare minimum, but it's enough to kind of get them some level of, direct bookings coming in, on that side of things. There was a key data dashboard report that came out some time ago, and it basically indicated that like your typical property manager in their data set is getting about that 20%, 22, 23% direct booking number. What I find interesting about that is that when I go look at our own data, when I see what's happening for most vacation rental managers on that side of things, I almost find again this like uneven distribution of how people get direct bookings. So I think you've got a lot of people that are getting very few direct bookings, like far less than 5%, or not doing much. They don't even have a website in some cases. And then you see these experts, these people that are getting, 50, 60, 70% direct bookings. And then that averages out to be 25%. But there's often not a lot of people that are in that 25% bucket, as you might think, right? It's like the experts have it figured out. They've got it scaled up. They know what they're doing. The beginners are down here. And it almost becomes a little bit of a haves and have nots type scenario. So I think if you're level two, you want to be there as little as possible. And you want to figure out how I get to level three. How do I get to be an expert so that I'm very predictable with the direct bookings that I'm getting? Like marketing is a well-oiled machine that I'm having to, do some maintenance on and change from time to time, but it's not something that I'm changing every single week or every single month, that sort of thing. And ultimately it's kind of like, how do I get to that top level of feeling very confident in my ability to get direct bookings? And I mean, the truth is then the tasks that get you from level 0 to 1 are very different from the levels that get you from 2 to 3. So obviously with a diverse, group of people here on the call today, on the webinar today, or watching later, you're going to see different things that, you might want to work on or focus on. So I think this level 0 to 1 is kind of your foundational. So this is like, all right, at least let's make sure that we've got the right pieces in place. So going back to kind of our 4 hour, concept here, if you have a website, that is like the foundation of building a house, is making sure that we've got the concrete there, or however you build. I don't even know how to build houses, to be honest with you. I'm the wrong person to ask about that. But you've got that. At least when they built my house, they put down this concrete pad and then they built the house on top of it. I would imagine if they brought in the framing people before the concrete pad was built, they would just turn around and go home, because they're like, well, we can't frame this house until the actual concrete pad is here, right? So I think this is where you think of your website, and this is where you think of your kind of, I just kind of refer to it as marketing infrastructure. So it's like, we got to have the PMS, we got to have the website, it's got to be online bookable, we got to have some level of branding, we've got to have some level of a name, we've got to have a domain that is actually accessible, people can find us, we've got to have just the basic pages set up. I'm not even saying doing marketing on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that at this stage. I'm saying that you better have your Facebook and Instagram page claimed at this point, that you own the page, you have access to it. At least there's a logo there and a picture. Again, we don't even have to have the conversation yet of actually doing anything on those channels. But I just want to make sure you have your foundation in place. If you're kind of at this level 0, level 1 type stage, you've got to go through all those things and make sure they're solid. You'll be surprised too that foundations are not all or nothing. What I do find sometimes quite regularly with certain clients that we begin to work with is that maybe their website's actually in pretty good shape, but it's like, oh, you've spent no time on like your branding efforts at all. Like we have no idea who our actual target guests are. We have no idea like how our tracking is set up on the website. It looks pretty, like it looks nice, but when it comes to kind of getting through these other elements of the foundation, we find some little cracks in the foundation that we can fill. So if that's you, don't worry. Like that's not uncommon. I mean, I had an audit that I did a little while ago for a property manager that was doing $5 million per year in total bookings. I think about half of them were direct bookings, and they had no tracking in their Google ads. So complete head scratcher, blew my mind that that was the case, but they were spending, several $1,000s per month on Google ads without any sort of sense or any sort of, exact data set on the number of people that were coming in and making a booking direct from their Google ads. They just know, hey, we're spending money on Google ads, and then we're getting some level of people back in the door there. So that's surprising, but that's not necessarily completely uncommon. So if there's something that you missed the foundation, don't feel bad, just fix it and then move on to the next thing. In your 4 hour work week style, marketing block that you have to work on, fix what you can fix it. And then once you're on to the next stage, you're on to the next stage. So yeah, again, this is kind of where I say like the website, this is your store. That if you were going to open a retail store and you wanted customers to come in it, certainly you'd have the door unlocked. Certainly you'd tell people when it's open. Certainly you'd have the ability to take money from a customer if they were to walk in the store. The direct booking site's no different. So I think that's kind of your base thing here. Your email list, I think email always becomes your single most valuable future asset, right? So it's like when your email list is small, I get it. You get nothing out of your email list when it's a few hundred people. Maybe you're lucky you get a booking or two or something like that. But I think if you start the email list now, it's kind of like that classic, the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time is today. That's email to a T. Because if you focus on growing your list early on, and then you're like, yeah, we've been doing this for a few years. We've been sending out some emails. I don't get a lot of bookings from email, but these people are used to hearing from me. When you start to ramp up your efforts, it's going to work so much better if you just have some kind of base to come from instead of what we see unfortunately a lot is, oh, we're 7 years into our company, we've never sent an email. We collected all these emails, we did nothing with them. Gosh, don't do that if you can help it. Like get started on the small, knowing full well that it's not going to be a massive growth driver, but you're going to have that leverage down the road because email is one of those things that scales incredibly efficiently. So as your email list gets bigger, it takes you no more time to send out the email. We sent an email out to one of our clients that has a list of 200,000 people on it. Candidly, it takes no more time for us to do that email than it does to a list of people, that 20 people, that are past guests. But the leverage, the value that the property manager gets that has 200,000 people on the email list is obviously, I can't even do that math in my head, 10,000 times, 1,000 times more impactful to their business because every time they send an email out to that list of 200,000 people, they're getting 20, 30, 40, 50 direct bookings every single time. So it's like, we just know if we click a few buttons and they use MailChimp, if we click a few buttons in MailChimp, send out the right offer to their past guest list, we're going to get 50 bookings just like that. Now, this is a large property manager. 50 bookings to them is kind of like a good morning, that they're quite big, but the point remains of like those high leverage tasks on things like email grow and compound over time. SEO wise, I think you want to make sure you're visible in Google. People can find you based on your brand name alone. Don't worry about generic terms at this stage. And you at least want to make sure that when people search your brand, you come up both organically and in paid search. So I think that's kind of your first thing. Own your name, get some results here on level, kind of that level 0, level 1 type arrangement there. Level 2, building systems. This is where I think once you're getting to that, hey, we're getting a few $100,000, on an annualized basis, maybe in terms of direct bookings, what's working well? Like what's a system that I can build that will put out a blog post every single week, that will put out a new Instagram reel, twice a week or once a week, depending on what your time and budget allows. In a way, I don't care that much about the output. Like I want the output to be great, obviously. But if someone says, hey, I only have time to do outlining blog posts once every other week, I'm going to be able to do 2 and maybe 2 get published on a monthly basis. If they're awesome, you'll make progress. Believe me, you will make some level of progress if you do that. Now, I think that your goal at this stage is that can I then start to bring in these other people? Can I then start to come back here and go back a few steps here? Can I start to bring in freelancers and agencies and maybe help automate some of my kind of like execution? I know what I want to do at this stage. I want to make sure that I'm getting to that next playbook. So that's something you want to consider, as you get a little bit further along here. But I think that's what you're building. You're building a system, and then how you design the system in terms of checks and balances, the people that you hire, the instruction, the feedback that you give them. That's your 4 hours is working on those ideas, and then you're sort of turning the wheel over to them to actually run the car, right? It's your job to design the car and make sure it can get from point A to point B. It's your job to make sure that, hey, we have a system to get reels out on a weekly basis. It's your job to make sure, hey, we have a system to make sure that when homes are photographed, we get them into our Facebook ad set as soon as possible. But then you're not sitting there doing all those things. At this point, you can probably start to hire someone out, but you're building a system that people are going to run, that people are actually going to execute upon. So there's your classic, 4-hour work week callback, which is build it once and then it works for you. It says here forever. The truth is it's going to work for you until it breaks, and then you got to go fix it. But that's marketing in general, right? Is that over time you're going to get better there. So email automation, SEO, we mentioned that. I think I'd rather go to this slide because this is more indicative of what I want to talk about. Once the website's kind of there, now you need to understand better, where's the traffic coming from? How is my tracking indicating what's going to work best? Which channels are working best for me? You may find, going back to my earlier slide, between search, social, and email, you may find you do much better on social media. And so you should be doubling down, tripling down on those types of advertisements, that type of content, if that works better for you. If you've found more success with SEO, if you found more success working on building out new landing pages for your market because you have very unique inventory, double down on that. So this isn't always going to be the same playbook for every single manager out there. Obviously, there's a variety of people here on the call, with all different markets and inventory counts and style of, marketing they may be doing. But I think once you have some tracking in place, you can start to look back once you've got 20, 30, 40, 50 direct bookings happening on a regular basis. And you could say, all right, what are some commonalities between these things? What can I duplicate? What can I do more of and get more results there? I think with email or just outbound messaging in general, it's just once you get to this next stage, it's being consistent. So instead of that person who's sending the email and then it's a 6-month delay, then they send an email again, that kind of gets you out of stage 0 into stage 1. But the person that's consistently saying, I'm going to send an email the first Tuesday of every month, and it's going to come come out at 1 p.m., that person will get significantly better results over time because their guest actually becomes somewhat trained to seeing marketing messages from them. Same thing with things like retargeting. We have clients where we run retargeting ads for all the people that have been on their website or their past guest list, and we have Facebook ad carousels where it says new to the program. That's one of the ad sets that we run for this client. And it's so funny how every like month or so we're typically adding in new homes to this Facebook ads carousel, and people will comment like, "Oh, I see this ad all the time, and it's cool. You guys are always adding new homes. I click through and I look at them." Now, is that someone that's going to book today or tomorrow? Probably not, to be honest with you. Like someone who's just kind of casually looking at it, seeing the ad is not always the person who's going to go and make that conversion right away. People who open emails are often not going and booking right away when they click on that email. They're often what they're doing is putting it in their knowledge bank, putting it in their memory bank. And then when they think, who am I going to stay with when I go to this destination? They're thinking of you. And that's ultimately where you want to get to from a marketing perspective, right? The more direct someone's knowledge or someone's kind of thought process is between who do I book with? Oh, I'm going to book with this company, the better off you are over time. The trouble is that that is not measurable. Like there's no metric that I could show you on a dashboard. There's no number I could put in a spreadsheet that would indicate that you are the first person that they think of when they go and do their thought process of where I'm going to go stay in the Outer Banks this year if I was going to go visit Adam, right? That's the hard part is that it shows up in the actual results over time because you see significantly better email open rates. You see a lot of direct traffic. When I say direct traffic, I don't just mean people going to your website in general. I mean them typing specifically your domain in and then hitting enter and going to your website. Branded traffic is another good indicator at this stage. People are not just looking for, Outer Banks and happening to find my properties, or not looking for where I'm based in the North Myrtle Beach area and finding my properties. There's some level of, marketing and one might argue chance to that, but they're searching specifically for, the example fictional company that I always do as an example is Conrad's Cool Cabin Rentals. That's the kind of search that converts so much better than any other generic search because they want me specifically. And that's where these marketing things start to build on top of each other. So I mentioned this earlier on the SEO side, so we kind of already hit this, but build content or create content, build links, and then track the most profitable non-brand ads and spend more. Like those, that's kind of your SEO PPC 1 hour dashboard is how can I make more blog content? How can I put more stuff out there about why we're experts, why we're local, what we do so well? What can I do on the link building side to make sure that more people reference my website? Do I have budget at this point where I can go pay for links, or can I hire a link building specialist to build more links to my website so people can find me? Also, there's a lot of data to indicate that that's pretty valuable for these LLM search tools, by the way, if you're into that as well. And then, yeah, what are my most profitable non-brand campaigns and how can I spend more? So, Adam, I feel like this is where we see a lot of people, right? They're kind of in this level two. Maybe this is that 50, 40 unit company like we talked about earlier. They're getting some of that initial success. Any of your thoughts here before I kind of go to that next tab on kind of these tactics or these ideas?
Just one quick addition, and you've touched on it a number of times, but I think this holistic approach is really what you want to get to eventually. Understood, you got to start somewhere, and maybe it's one channel, and then you can add additional layers. But the reason there's value there, to Conrad's point, the people that you get in front of, the guests that are going to book your homes, are not necessarily going to see one ad, one email, one blog post, and then go and click that link and go over to your website. You want to stay in front of them multiple different times in multiple different channels so that they can start to see you and start to recognize your brand and your message and your voice. That's how you stick in your head, so that when they're ready to book, that's when they seek you and find your website.
As a way to think about exactly what Adam just described so well there, it's like, how do I become well known to the people that are likely to book with me? Like if you got that, you've got to figure it out, right? Like the channels are somewhat agnostic. In theory, you could do that well on Facebook or Instagram to some degree, depending on your audience, their demographics, their psychographics. Both those can work well. And I think what people seem to always want when we chat with them for the first time is, what's the one thing I can do? And it's like, as much as I wish I could say that, it doesn't really work that way very often. Like what usually happens for most people is that it's a combination of things over time that they get really good at that lead to those kind of levels of success. So, that's kind of the way I think about it. We touched on homeowner earlier. I think when you're at this level two page, that's where you want to have a dedicated homeowner page. You want that to be rich with information about what you offer. You want that to have case studies. You want that to have video testimonials. That's one thing I see missed a lot nowadays is people have a homeowner page, and unfortunately they just become very me too. Okay, well, we do revenue management. Well, so does everybody else in the market. They all say they do revenue management. That's not a new concept. They say we're local. Okay, well, there's a half dozen local companies, or depending on the market, there's 2 dozen local companies. So I think standing out on the homeowner side is really hard. So the best way is not you claiming that you're good. The best way on a homeowner page to stand out is get other people to say you're good. So Adam trusts his, 5 bedroom oceanfront house to me. He's going to let me rent his house out. I'm a property manager. I want Adam on video saying, And I was really unsure if I was going to rent this cabin out or not, rent this property out or not. I then chose to work with Conrad's company. And he's done a great job. It's amazing. We love working with him. He makes it stress free. I love it. That will get so much more effectiveness on the homeowner side than you saying over and over again how great you are, because they see the same thing on every single piece of material they see, whether it's a landing page, whether it's a postcard, whether it's a big company or national company, whether it's a small local company, they all say the same thing. But no one else has your case studies. No one else has your story of your homeowner that you've worked with that you can then put on video or put in some kind of testimonial format and say, I worked with this company. I was worried, I was nervous, I wasn't sure I was going to go, and then they did a great job. I kind of touched on this earlier, but again, I think this is that level two, level three, where you can expand beyond just the email. Email's great, don't get me wrong, I love it as a marketing tactic and channel. It fits very nicely into this kind of 4 hour idea that we've hit on so far over the last 40 minutes or so. But outbound could be one-to-one messages, it could be outbound phone calls, it could be outbound SMS. But the idea is, I've got this roster of past customers that have stayed with me before, past guests. How can I reach out to them in diverse ways so that I get their attention? This was actually a topic of a recent offsite that I did a few weeks ago for a client in Denver, and they were talking about trying to set up a really complex system for people that were coming for a specific event. I think it was like a triathlon or something to that effect. And how do we get them to book again for next year? So they're departing their stay in 2025. How do I get them to come and book again for 2026 on the same dates? And I was kind of like raising my hand there as the marketing guy in the room, and I'm like, can we just call them and ask them if they're coming again and if they want to go ahead and reserve the stays? Like, why are we overcomplicating this with a lot of fancy automation and trying to get the PMS to talk to the email system and stuff like that? I'm like, unless we have no ability to make, let's say 12 or 15 phone calls, that was kind of the amount of reservations that we're talking about here. Why not make that phone call the day before departure and say, hey, Adam, I know you're here for the triathlon up in, wherever up in Virginia. Just curious, are you guys going to do it again for next year? If so, they just gave us the dates for next year. I can go ahead and block those dates for you. If you give me 10% down as a deposit, I'll collect the other 50% 90 days before, whatever your policy is, right? I don't really care what your policy is, but that's the kind of thing that outbound level two, those are the companies who are saying, let me not even give Airbnb or Vrbo a chance to get this guest again to book on their platform. Let me just get them secured right now. Let me get them locked in right now. Let me make it easy on them. Let me provide a service, that they actually care about. And then they got their date secured. Maybe even they want the same property. Oh yeah, I can secure that same property for you. No problem. Like that's not an issue for us. Oh, your friend's coming next year? Well, I can give you this other property. It has 2 more bedrooms. It's great. That sort of thing. That can happen a lot in outbound context. So the clients we work with that do a lot of outbound just always are better direct booking. It's just very simple. Like if they get inbound leads, they're responding better. They have a reservation team or something to that effect that's able to go out back to those people through phone, through one-to-one email, through a text, etc. And they just get better results. So I think this level two, level three is where outbound starts to make a lot of sense. I think SEO PPC wise, this is where you're checking your rankings. Where are we growing? Where are we maybe to some degree hitting a wall? Like we rank number one when people are searching for this community building. Okay, we probably don't have to worry about that too much. Let's keep an eye on it, but we can then take that 4 hours a week and start to focus in on other pages or focus in on other areas. Whatever is working well, let's do more of it. If we've done 10 articles on the best things to do, we probably don't need to keep doing that as much if those are not doing as well. Let's double down on restaurant content. Let's do that for a while. Let's repurpose that into reels and other types of content, like Adam said a few minutes ago. And then, yeah, I think level three is the machine, right? That's not just system or one particular thread from point A to point B or one SOP or one marketing process. It's essentially you are the director, and I think the clients that we work with that are getting, millions of dollars of direct bookings on an annual basis, they're hiring us to work on one specific skill or one specific thing that we have developed in the build-up side of things. And then they are a director. They're telling us at a high level what's going on in the company, what's changing, what's happening, and then obviously they're bringing that down to the tactical level of what we actually have to do. So this is where you're doing a high level goal strategy session. This is where you might be doing things like rocks, which is very common in the EOS system. That's quite popular. A lot of people might say, okay, this rock, what we want to accomplish by this quarter is we want to have 4 new homeowner testimonials. So we need to be doing one every few weeks to make sure we have them. That's where you're not just doing basic SEO techniques and ranking for low volume keywords. We want to rank for, the best travel blogs that cover our destination. We want to get covered there. And that's where we want to really use, all these fancy bidding strategies from Google. To be honest, you're kind of using those a little bit early on, but that's where you can do testing. That's where you could spend $100 a day on one campaign strategy and then $100 a day on another campaign strategy and do some comparison to see how well those things are going. So I think your 4-hour journey starts like this. You identify where you're at. You go between level 0 and 1. You're getting the core assets, the foundation built. Then you're building the systems that kind of start to work without you a little bit. And then you're eventually delegating, strategizing, and directing other people to kind of work with you. And that's how you get the success that you want. So I think it's eliminate what's not working, Focus in on one channel at a time. Just get rid of a lot of the distractions or things that you're trying to do. Know that you're putting something on the shelf, maybe not forever, but for right now, you're not focused on it. And then dedicate your time to getting that mile deep and not getting an inch deep with that particular channel. And I promise you, if you do that for an extended period of time, you'll see results. So I know we're coming up against the time wise. Here is my offer for today. So two things I can do for people listening who are actually still here live. If you do this later on, I will not be able to give you the Amazon gift card. So this is only for the people that are here live right now. Scan the QR code on the screen. Enter in your email address on the newsletter page that comes up when you scan this QR code on the screen. If you enter, I'm recording this, basically we're wrapping up here 2 p.m. or so, Wednesday, November 12th. So I'll look at everyone who signs up between, let's say, 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. So for the next hour or so, I'll look at everyone that signs up and I'm going to pick one random person that signs up on the newsletter and I'm going to give them a $100 Amazon gift card. So look at your inbox. I'll send that out tomorrow, but scan this QR code, get on the list. And again, for the next hour or so, I'll look at all the signups that we get over the next hour or so, and then I will reach back out to one person and give them a $100 Amazon gift card. For those that don't win the gift card, there obviously there's only one winner for the gift card. I would love to give you a copy of my book, Mastering Vacational Marketing. So if you want that, sign up here and then reply to that email. You'll get like an autoresponder. Reply to that email and say, I would like a copy of the book. It'll come right back to my inbox, Conrad@BuildUpBookings.com. And if I can't give you the $100 gift card, I can give you the book, and that'll be applicable no matter what, whether you're looking at this a day later, a month later, 6 months later, whatever the case may be. So Adam, I know we're close up against the time wise. Any other parting thoughts before we put a bow on this one? I'll leave this up on the screen until we close, but.
Just a couple quick thoughts. So one, I think keep it simple and keep it consistent. So figure out what you can do on a regular basis and keep that simple. And then to Conrad's point about understanding what's working, focus on effective more than efficient. Find out what's working and then double down on that.
Yeah, I love it. So I'll leave this up here for just one more minute, so people can go ahead and scan it. Again, you have about the next hour, but I would do it right now, because when I close this out, you're not going to be able to get to the QR code, but go ahead and enter. If you're new to the email list, even if you're new or if you've been on the email list before, don't worry. I'll get a little alert in my system. I'm going to pick one person tomorrow. I'm going to email that person and I'm going to give them a $100 Amazon gift card because you showed up live. And I think anyone showing up live is thank you, first of all, for doing that because you didn't have to. I'm sure you're super busy. I know you have 1,000 things you need to do today, I'm sure. So I appreciate you showing up live. I want to give you a small token of my gratitude, at least to one person. And yeah, I like that you took action. So that's fantastic. If you're watching the recording later on, don't worry, still scan the QR code, get in the list. You won't win the $100 gift card. Sorry. Lesson learned. Show up to our live webinars next time and you have a chance to win it. But if you want, I'm happy to give you a copy of the book. Reply to the email that you get or just email me, Conrad@BuildUpBookings.com. Put like free book in there and I could send you a physical copy of my book. If you're based in the US, if you're based elsewhere in the world, you're not in the US, I'll send you a PDF copy. So at least you can get the same information. I just haven't figured out how to get a book in a reasonable cost from, somewhere in my office over to wherever you might be in the world. So that's all I got. If you have any questions at the end of this webinar, you will get a link to the getting started page. If you go to buildupbookings.com, click book a free call. You might be chatting with Adam. You might be chatting with Kathy and our team on the sales side, but you'll be able to chat with us and we could potentially help you with your marketing. But that's it. We're at time. Thank you so much. We appreciate you for, again, hopping on here and doing that kind of thing. If you have any questions, definitely let us know. And we look forward to seeing you on another webinar in the future. Thanks so much. Have an awesome day.